After my rebirth, my entire family can hear my thoughts. Part 1. The original story. After my rebirth, my entire family can hear my thoughts. Should I tell mom that her beloved adopted daughter is actually dad's secret child? I watched mom reach for the girl's hand. It trembled. Better not tell Marcus that dad deliberately ruined his life. I saw my gaming-obsessed brother's phone suddenly burn in his hands. If Ethan knew dad hired someone to harm his legs, would he be devastated? My wheelchair-bound oldest brother's hair seemed to smoke with rage. If they discovered dad did all this just to marry his childhood sweetheart, will our family fall apart? The way everyone looked at dad changed all because I argued with our family's adopted daughter. Dad threw me out the 13th floor window. I passed away instantly, but I didn't disappear. My spirit followed dad around, learning all his secrets. He married mom for money. He already had a woman he loved, a woman who bore him a daughter, our adopted sister, Violet. From day one of his marriage, dad plotted to steal mom's family fortune, then run off with his mistress and precious daughter to live happily ever after. But something unexpected happened. I was reborn back to the day dad brought Violet home. Violet, say hello to your new mother, dad urged, pushing her toward mom. Violet trembled like a frightened bird, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Her exposed arms showed marks everywhere. This pitiful appearance made mom feel instant compassion. She would treat Violet better than her own daughter, better than me. Terrified of mistreating her as mom reached out to take Violet's hand. Did I tell mom Violet is actually dad's secret child? Mom's hand holding Violet's visibly shook. She looked around, finally settling her gaze on me. I blinked innocently back at her. Mom frowned, thinking she was hallucinating. Next, Violet will throw herself into mom's arms, crying, earning her sympathy. The next moment, Violet buried herself in mom's embrace, sobbing dramatically. In my past life, mom was deeply moved and cried with her. This time, she couldn't cry. Her eyes stayed fixed on me. Amber, are you speaking?
No, Idania.
I can't let mom know I was reborn. She'll think I'm a monster. Mom's eyes widened like saucers, belief written across her face. Dad stepped forward, comforting Violet. Don't cry. This is your home now. He turned to me. Amber, show Violet to her room, okay? I agreed, readily thinking soon Violet will fall down the stairs and blame me. Sure enough, halfway up, Violet tumbled down the staircase. Dad rushed to catch her. Violet, what happened? Don't blame Amber. I slipped, Violet said painfully. Dad immediately snapped at me. Amber, Violet is your sister now. How could you target her? Have we spoiled you so much you'd do something this terrible? Mom walked over, noticeably less agitated than Dad. Violet quickly addressed her. Mom, please don't scold Amber. I understand she can't accept me, yet she's been the only daughter here. I get it. In my past life, this made mom prejudiced against me. Convinced I lacked compassion, Violet escalated her accusations until mom was completely disappointed in me, showering all her love on Violet alone. This time, I thought I'm going to get blamed again. No matter what I say, they won't listen. I should just stay quiet. Mom's eyes held guilt and sadness as she looked at me. Then slap. Mom's hand struck Violet's face hard, stunning everyone. Dad stood frozen, unable to process what happened. Mom's voice shook with fury. I saw clearly you fell on purpose. You're framing Amber. No wonder your previous adoptive family returned you. Pitiful people have hateful qualities. Adopting Violet was Dad's idea, of course. He claimed he met a poor girl at an orphanage during charity work. Previously adopted but mistreated. He wanted to rescue her. He said having another girl would give me a companion. Mom agreed after Dad's persistent pleading. Dad and Violet had prepared everything perfectly. They didn't expect to be exposed on day one. Dad had deliberately blocked Mom's view, worried she'd see the truth. Violet stammered, helplessly, looking to Dad for rescue. Dad quickly explained Violet's been mistreated and lacks security. She probably misunderstood what happened. It's all a misunderstanding. You're overreacting and scaring the poor child. Mom prepared to expose Dad's scheme. Then she heard my thoughts again. If I expose Dad now, he won't admit it. Worse, it'll alert him. He controls so many company shares. Mom hesitated. My brothers will definitely side with Dad. He's always been the fun parent while Mom's been strict. If things blow up, they might even help him. Mom fell silent, apparently agreeing with my reasoning. She forced down her anger. I don't want this happening again. Violet nodded obediently, still looking pitiful. Mrs. Chun, take her to her room, Mom ordered the housekeeper. Mrs. Chun led Violet upstairs. Dad tried explaining to Mom, hoping to make her accept and love Violet faster. But Mom grabbed my hand and walked past him without looking back.
Dad.
Dad stood bewildered. Usually his sweet talk made Mom happy. Why was she suddenly cold to him? I glanced back at his confused expression and smiled coldly. He had no idea his good days were ending. Mom brought me to my room. She studied me seriously. Amber, tell me, do you know something about your father? My expression stayed innocent. I shook my head. I don't know, but I thought I can't tell her. She'll be so disappointed. Last life I saw Dad with another woman and told Mom. She said I was making things up. Mom said I lacked compassion, that just because as Dad favored Violet more, I wanted to cause trouble. I'm so scared Mom won't love me anymore. Tears filled Mom's eyes instantly, her face showing heartbreak and guilt. Amber, you're my daughter. I love you more than anything in this world. I love you too, Mom, deeply. Moved, I threw myself into her arms. Mom didn't force me to say more, but afterward I clearly felt Mom growing distant from both Dad and Violet. Whenever Violet tried being friendly, Mom ignored her. When Dad tried pleasing Mom, she barely responded. Mom even started going to the company more often, though she rarely went before. Dad and Violet grew noticeably anxious. After dinner, they hid in a corner whispering. Violet said, Dad, you said that woman was easy to please, but no matter what I do, she's cold to me.
Why?
Dad replied, I don't know either. She's like a different person. Maybe menopause is starting. Bad mood. Forget her. Tomorrow your second brother comes home for winter break. He's an idiot. Win him over first, okay? Violet agreed. Replace Amber's position in this family as quickly as possible. Once you're everyone's favorite, getting their fortune will be easy. Then we can bring your real mother here to enjoy the good life, Dad instructed. Don't worry, Dad. Amber's a sheltered fool. How could she compete with me? I'll have everyone's love soon, Violet said confidently. In my past life, she was right. I trusted Violet completely. Under Dad's manipulation, I treated her like a real sister. But she constantly schemed against me, framing me until everyone thought I was selfish. Eventually, they only loved her. This life, her luck had run out. Next day at noon, Marcus came home for winter break. He was a 200-pound guy who never exercised and only ate junk food. He didn't study either, just played video games all day. His college admission was bought with family money. To outsiders, Marcus was completely useless. Mom never imagined he'd turn out this way, but she'd focused so much energy on Ethan's education that Dad mainly raised Marcus. Dad always told Marcus that with Ethan as the family star, he just needed to be a carefree, rich kid. Gradually, Marcus lost all ambition, just coasting through life. Violet rushed to greet him. First, she leaned close to his ear whispering, Dad told me you love chips, fried chicken, spicy snacks, and instant noodles. I bought everything and put it in your room, plus your favorite soda.
Don't tell Mom, okay?
I saw a light flash in Marcus's eyes. Mom banned the stuff from the house. Even checked Marcus's luggage when he came home, never giving him a chance to eat these foods. Dad used to secretly buy them. Now Violet had taken over. I clearly felt Marcus develop instant fondness for Violet until he heard my thoughts. Part 2. The extended continuation, 7,000 words. Marcus thinks Violet's sweet, but Dad told her Marcus loves junk food because he wants Marcus unhealthy and dependent. In my past life, Marcus developed diabetes at 25. Marcus's expression shifted. The warmth in his eyes cooled instantly as he looked at Violet, then at Dad across the room. His jaw clenched, the muscle there twitching visibly. I watched my brother's face cycle through confusion, hurt, and finally something harder. Anger, maybe. Or the beginning of understanding. Thanks, Marcus said to Violet, his voice flat. He didn't smile. The eager light that had sparked in his eyes moments before had been snuffed out completely. Violet's face fell. She'd expected gratitude, maybe even a hug. Instead, Marcus brushed past her, his shoulder knocking against hers with enough force to make her stumble. She caught herself on the banister, staring after him with wounded eyes that quickly hardened into calculation. I need to tell Marcus the truth, I thought, watching him climb the stairs. But how do I do it without revealing I can see the future? He'll think I'm insane. Mom's hand tightened on my shoulder. She'd been standing behind me the whole time, silent, listening to my thoughts. Her breathing had changed, becoming shallow and quick. That evening, Mom called a private investigator. I know because I heard her thoughts echoing my own concerns. She sat in her study, the door locked, her fingers trembling as she dialed the number. The amber liquid in her crystal glass caught the lamplight, throwing golden shadows across the mahogany desk that had belonged to her father and his father before him. Through the crack under the door, I could see her shadow shift as she stood, pacing. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor in an erratic rhythm that betrayed her anxiety. "I need you to look into my husband," she said into the phone, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything. Bank accounts, properties I don't know about, women." She paused, swallowing hard. "Especially women." The next morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our dining room, illuminating the elaborate breakfast spread that Mrs. Chun had prepared. The scent of fresh coffee mingled with warm pastries, but the atmosphere at the table was anything but comfortable. Dad sat at the head of the table, reading the financial section of the newspaper. His expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept flicking toward Mom. She sat at the opposite end, her posture perfect, her face an elegant mask. Between them, the long table stretched like a battlefield. Violet perched on Dad's right, pushing scrambled eggs around her plate with studied dejection. She'd perfected the art of looking pathetic. Her lower lip trembled slightly, and she kept her eyes downcast, the picture of a wounded soul. Marcus slouched across from her, his phone in one hand, a fork in the other. But I noticed he wasn't actually playing any games. His screen was dark. He was watching Dad and Violet through his peripheral vision. "Violet, sweetheart, you've barely eaten," Dad said, his voice dripping with concern. He reached over to pat her hand. "Is everything all right?" "She should say she's fine, just needs time to adjust," I thought. "Then she'll cry a little, and Dad will comfort her while glaring at Mom and me." "I'm fine," Violet whispered, right on cue. Her voice cracked. "I just need time to adjust." A single tear rolled down her cheek, catching the morning light like a diamond. Dad's face darkened as he looked at Mom. "She's just a child who's been through hell. Would it kill you to show some warmth?" Mom's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. She set it down with deliberate care, the fine china clicking against the saucer. "I've given her a room, clothes, food, and a place in our home. What more warmth do you expect?" Her voice was ice. I'd never heard Mom sound like that before. Not even when she was angry. This was different. This was controlled fury, sharp enough to cut. Marcus's eyes darted between them, his fingers tightening around his phone. "Dad's planning something," I thought. "He's too calm." In my past life, when Mom didn't immediately love Violet, he started transferring company assets. He used Marcus's name and social security number to open accounts. Marcus didn't find out until the IRS came after him for tax evasion. Mom's fork clattered to her plate. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Amber, come with me. We're going shopping." I followed her out, but not before catching the flash of triumph in Dad's eyes. He thought he'd won, that Mom was running away defeated. He had no idea she was going to war. In the car, Mom didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. We weren't actually going shopping. Instead, she pulled into the parking lot of a law firm downtown, one of those buildings with glass and steel that reflected the sky. "Stay here," she said, unbuckling her seatbelt. "I'll be quick." I should go with her, I thought. She's going to talk to a divorce lawyer, but she needs to ask about protecting company assets first. Dad's been forging signatures. Mom froze, her hand on the door handle. She turned to look at me, really look at me, and I saw fear in her eyes. Not of Dad. Of me. Of this impossible thing where her daughter's thoughts appeared in her head like whispers from a ghost. "Amber," she said slowly, "how do you know these things?" I met her gaze, trying to appear as innocent and normal as possible. "I don't know what you mean, Mom. I can't tell her I died and came back. She'll never believe me, but I can guide her. Let her think she's figuring it out herself." Understanding dawned in Mom's expression. She thought I'd overheard something, that I was a clever child who'd pieced together adult secrets. It wasn't the truth, but it was close enough. She nodded, seeming to accept this explanation, and squeezed my hand. "Come with me then," she said. "It's time you understood some things." The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old books. A middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and silver-streaked hair greeted us, gesturing to seats across from her massive desk. Her name was Victoria Brennan, and she had a reputation for destroying unfaithful husbands in court. Mom explained everything, her voice steady despite the pain I could see in the tightness around her eyes. Victoria listened, taking notes in neat, precise handwriting. "We need to move carefully," Victoria said when Mom finished. "If he's been transferring assets, we need documentation. Bank records, property deeds, communication records." She looked at me, then back at Mom. "Does he keep files at home?" "He keeps everything in his study," I thought. "Third drawer of his desk. He thinks Mom never goes in there. The passwords for his computer and phone are Violet's birthday." Mom's expression tightened. She turned to Victoria. I'll get you everything you need. Over the next week, Mom transformed. She became a spy in her own home, a detective gathering evidence against the man who'd shared her bed for over 20 years. I watched her move through the house with purpose, her elegant exterior hiding the steel beneath. She copied files from Dad's computer while he was in the shower. She photographed documents when he went to the gym. She recorded conversations using her phone tucked in her pocket. Every piece of evidence was sent directly to Victoria. Meanwhile, Violet was working on Ethan. My oldest brother came home on Thursday, his wheelchair navigating through the front door with practiced ease. Ethan was brilliant, everyone said so. He'd been on track to become a professional athlete, a runner with Olympic potential, until a hit-and-run accident shattered both his legs 2 years ago. I knew the truth. Dad had hired someone to do it. He couldn't risk Ethan becoming successful enough to take over Mom's company. Dad needed his stepsons dependent, controllable, out of the way. Violet was waiting for him in the foyer, her face arranged in sympathetic lines. "You must be Ethan," she said softly, kneeling beside his wheelchair.
I'm Violet.
"I'm so sorry about what happened to you." She's going to offer to help him with physical therapy exercises, I thought. Then she'll accidentally hurt him and blame his condition. She'll make him feel useless. Mom, standing in the hallway within earshot, went rigid. Ethan studied Violet with cautious eyes. He'd always been the observant one, the brother who noticed details others missed. "Thanks," he said neutrally, "but I'm managing fine." "I trained as a physical therapy assistant." Violet pressed on, her hand reaching toward his arm. "I could help you with exercises. Free of charge, of course. We're family now." She never trained as anything, I thought. She'll injure him further, and call it an accident. "No thanks," Ethan said firmly, rolling his wheelchair backward, away from her touch. His eyes found mine across the room, questioning. He'd heard something in my silence, perhaps, or seen something in Mom's reaction. That night, Mom gathered all 3 of us in her bedroom. Marcus, Ethan, and me. She locked the door and stood before us, her face grave. "I need to tell you all something," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "And I need you to trust me." She told them about Violet, about Dad's affair, about the money he'd been stealing. She showed them the evidence Victoria had compiled. Bank transfers, property deeds in false names, photographs of Dad with another woman, a woman who looked remarkably like an older version of Violet. Marcus stared at the photos, his face draining of color. "The diabetes," he whispered. "He wanted me sick." Ethan's hands clenched on the armrests of his wheelchair. "The accident. The police never found who did it." His voice was deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that preceded storms. Mom nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." "It's not your fault," Ethan said, but his eyes had gone cold. "It's his." They believe her, I thought with relief. We can fight him together. The next morning, everything came to a head. Dad and Violet were in his study, whispering urgently. They didn't know that Ethan had positioned his wheelchair just outside, listening. They didn't know Marcus had placed his phone on the bookshelf inside, recording everything. "The lawyer called," Dad was saying, his voice tight with stress. "Your mother's been asking questions. Someone tipped her off." "It's Amber," Violet hissed. "That little brat. She's been acting strange since I got here. We need to handle her." "Handle her how?" Dad asked. There was a long pause. Too long. When Violet spoke again, her voice was flat, emotionless. "Same way you handled Ethan. An accident. She's always been clumsy." My blood ran cold. Outside the door, Ethan's face had gone white. His hands trembled with rage. "Don't be stupid," Dad snapped. "We can't do that again. Not so soon. It would look suspicious." "Then what?" Violet demanded. "We're losing control. That woman barely looks at me. Marcus won't talk to me. Ethan avoids me. It's all falling apart." "We move up the timeline," Dad said decisively. "I'll transfer the remaining assets tomorrow. We'll have everything liquidated by next week. Then we disappear." "And them?" Violet asked. "Leave them with nothing," Dad said coldly. "Let them figure it out." The recording ended. We gathered in Mom's study that evening, all of us. The evidence spread across her desk like weapons in an arsenal. Bank records, property documents, photographs, and now this recording. "We go to the police," Ethan said immediately. His voice was hard, controlled. He admitted to the hit and run. "That's attempted murder." "And the embezzlement," Mom added, her finger tracing one of the bank statements. "He's stolen over $10 million from the company." Marcus said nothing. He sat in the corner, his gaming console forgotten in his lap, staring at nothing. I could see the hurt in his eyes, the betrayal. This was the man who'd bought him chips and soda, who'd called him sport and buddy, who'd ruined his health deliberately. I walked over to him and took his hand. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw tears.
"I'm sorry," he whispered.
You knew, he said. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement. Somehow you knew, and you tried to warn me. I nodded. He squeezed my hand. Thank you. The police arrived at dawn. Dad was still in bed when they knocked, loud and authoritative. He stumbled downstairs in his robe, his hair disheveled, confusion written across his face. That confusion turned to shock when he saw the officers, then to panic when they read him his rights. This is ridiculous, he sputtered, looking at Mom. Sweetheart, what's going on? Tell them this is a mistake. Mom stood at the top of the stairs, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed. The only mistake, she said coldly, was marrying you. Violet appeared from her room, her face pale. When she saw the officers, she tried to run, tried to slip back into her room and lock the door. But Ethan was faster. He rolled his wheelchair in front of her, blocking her path. Going somewhere? He asked pleasantly, though his eyes were ice. She stared at him, recognition dawning. She knew she'd been caught. It was all him, she said quickly, pointing at Dad. He made me do it. I'm just a kid. He manipulated me. Dad's face went purple. You lying little. Save it for court, one of the officers said, snapping handcuffs on Dad's wrists. Another officer did the same to Violet. They were let out to separate patrol cars. Neighbors had gathered on their lawns, whispering behind their hands. The morning sun cast long shadows across our driveway as the cars pulled away, lights flashing. Inside, our house was silent. Mom stood in the foyer, her perfect composure finally cracking. She sank onto the bottom stair, her face in her hands, and wept. Great, shaking sobs that seemed to tear out of her chest. I sat beside her, wrapping my arms around her. Marcus and Ethan joined us, creating a circle of family, of the people who'd survived. I'm sorry, Mom kept saying. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry I almost lost you all. You didn't lose us, Ethan said firmly. We're right here. And we're not going anywhere, Marcus added. The trial lasted 3 months. Dad tried every defense his expensive lawyers could manufacture. He claimed the money was his, that he'd contributed to the company's success. He denied knowing about the hit and run, said the evidence was circumstantial. He painted Violet as a disturbed child who'd fabricated everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. The bank records showed systematic theft over years. The DNA test proved Violet was his biological daughter, conceived during his marriage to Mom. The recordings captured his own words, his own admissions. And the man he'd hired to hit Ethan, faced with his own charges, turned state's witness and testified against him. Violet, faced with similar evidence, took a plea deal. She testified about the plan, about her real mother waiting in a house Dad had bought her, about the schemes they'd hatched together. In exchange, she received a reduced sentence and mandatory psychiatric evaluation. She was, after all, only 16. A child raised to be a weapon by a father who never truly loved her, only used her. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Dad was sentenced to 20 years for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. The judge's words were scathing, calling him a parasite who'd preyed on the woman who'd loved him. When the verdict was read, Dad's eyes found mine across the courtroom. There was hatred there, pure and venomous, but also confusion. He still didn't understand how it had all fallen apart. I looked back at him without blinking, my face calm. You killed me once, I thought. You won't get the chance again. The aftermath was a slow healing. Mom threw herself into the company with renewed vigor, no longer weighed down by a husband sabotaging her from within. She was brilliant. Everyone had always known it, but now she could shine without someone dimming her light. Within a year, the company's stock had reached record highs. Ethan started physical therapy again, this time with a specialist Mom had found. He'd never run professionally again, the doctors said, but he might walk. With time and work and hope, he might walk. He attacked his exercises with the same determination he'd once brought to track, and I saw the change in him week by week. Strength returning. Hope returning. Marcus was the biggest surprise. Without Dad's voice in his ear telling him he was useless, Marcus discovered he actually had ambition. He started eating better, not because Mom forced him, but because he wanted to. He joined a gym, hired a trainer, began taking his studies seriously. He switched his major from business to computer science, something that actually interested him. I'm good at this, he told me one night, his eyes bright with genuine excitement as he showed me a program he'd coded. I'm actually good at something. You were always good at things, I said. You just weren't allowed to try. As for me, I was finally just a daughter. I didn't have to carry the weight of future knowledge alone anymore. Mom knew everything, had heard all my thoughts, and instead of thinking me a monster, she called me her miracle. The daughter who'd saved their family. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered about my past life. The Amber who died, thrown from a window, her spirit wandering long enough to learn the truth. Was I her? Was she me? Or were we different people, separated by death and rebirth? I didn't have answers. But I had this life, this second chance, and I was determined not to waste it. 1 year after Dad's sentencing, on a bright Saturday morning, something impossible happened. Ethan walked. It wasn't far, just from his wheelchair to the sofa in our living room, his physical therapist supporting him. But he walked. His legs trembled, his face was tight with concentration and pain, but he walked. Mom burst into tears. Marcus hooped and hollered, jumping up and down like a kid. I just smiled, feeling warmth spread through my chest. I did it, Ethan said, collapsing onto the sofa, his breath coming in gasps. But he was smiling, really smiling for the first time in years. I actually did it. You did, Mom said, kneeling beside him, holding his hands. You're so strong.
So brave.
I'm so proud of you. We celebrated that night with takeout Chinese food and terrible movies, all of us piled together on the sofas in our living room. It was simple, nothing fancy, but it was perfect. This is what family should be, I thought. People who love each other, who protect each other, who celebrate each other's victories no matter how small. Mom smiled at me from across the room, and I knew she'd heard. 2 years later, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Mom had remarried to a kind man named Richard, who'd been widowed 5 years earlier. He had 2 daughters of his own, and they blended into our family like they'd always belonged. Richard loved Mom for exactly who she was, powerful and brilliant and strong, and he never once tried to diminish her. Ethan had walked at his college graduation, refusing the wheelchair. His legs still ached and he couldn't run, but he could walk. He'd gotten a degree in architecture and was designing accessible buildings, creating spaces where people like him could move freely. Marcus had lost 80 pounds and gained a tech startup. His company was small but growing, creating apps that helped people. The gaming console collected dust in his closet, replaced by genuine passion.
And me?
I was just starting high school, navigating the usual teenage dramas of friends and homework and boys. Normal dramas. Safe dramas. The kind where nobody died. Sometimes I still had nightmares about falling, about the window and the 13th floor, and the moment of impact. I'd wake up gasping, my heart racing, Mom already rushing into my room because she'd heard my terror in her dreams. She'd hold me and remind me I was safe, that he was gone, that we'd won. And slowly, the nightmares came less frequently. On the 3rd anniversary of Dad's sentencing, I went to visit him in prison. Mom didn't want me to go. Marcus said he was trash and didn't deserve my time. Ethan said nothing, but his eyes were hard. Richard, surprisingly, said I should go if I wanted to. Sometimes we need closure, he told me, even from terrible people. So I went. Dad looked older, smaller somehow. Prison had whittled him down, carved away the confidence and charm that had once defined him. His hair had gone gray at the temples. Lines creased his face. He sat across from me in the visitation room, his hands folded on the scarred table between us. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Why did you come? He finally asked. His voice was hoarse, like he didn't use it much. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe I needed to see you weren't a monster. Just a man who made terrible choices. His laugh was bitter. I am a monster. I know what I did to you all. Do you regret it? I asked. He was silent for a long time. Outside the window, I could see other families visiting, tears and laughter and desperate affection. All the complicated emotions that came with loving someone who'd done terrible things. I regret getting caught, he said finally. I regret losing everything. But do I regret the plan itself? He shook his head. I don't know if I'm capable of that kind of regret. At least he was honest. I stood to leave. I hope you find that capability someday. Not for us. We've moved on. But for yourself. Amber, he called as I reached the door. I paused. In another life, I could have been a real father to you. I could have been proud of you instead of threatened by you. In another life, I agreed. But not this one. I walked out and didn't look back. 5 years after my rebirth, I graduated high school as valedictorian. Mom sat in the front row, Richard beside her, both of them beaming. Marcus had flown in from Silicon Valley, where his company had just been acquired for an amount that made my head spin. Ethan had brought his fiancée, a physical therapist he'd met during his recovery, a woman who'd seen him at his weakest and loved him anyway. Our family had grown. Richard's daughters were there, along with Mom's parents, who'd reconciled with her after the divorce. Friends and teachers, and people who'd become important to us. As I stood at the podium, looking out at all those faces, I thought about my past life. The Amber who died alone, unloved, thrown away like garbage. She'd given me this chance. Her death had been my rebirth, and I'd used it to save not just myself, but all of us. Family, I began my speech, isn't just about blood. It's about the people who choose to stand beside you, who fight for you, who celebrate your victories and mourn your losses. It's about the bonds we forge through love and trust and sometimes forgiveness. I saw Mom wipe tears from her eyes. I'm standing here today because of my family, because my mother taught me strength, because my brothers taught me resilience, because my stepfather taught me that good men do exist, and because a girl I once knew taught me that even from the darkest moments, we can find light. After the ceremony, we gathered at our house for a party. The same house where everything had almost fallen apart. But it didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt like home. You did good, kid, Marcus said, slinging an arm around my shoulders. Real good. We all did, I said, looking around at our mismatched, blended, beautiful family. Ethan raised his glass. To second chances, he said. To second chances, we all echoed. I touched my glass to my lips and smiled. Because this life, this second chance, was everything I'd fought for, everything I died for. And it was perfect.